Uh, Today is World Environment Day, so it's a great time to discuss this theme of how do we manage and bring plastics, circularity to e-waste plastics. It has been discussed, debated, but we don't have great answers on this topic still. The theme again for the World Environment Day this year is beat plastics pollution. So we will, in the same spirit, focus on bringing circularity to e-waste plastics today. And I am delighted to have three very special people, as part of this conversation today. We have Sanjay from Covestro, Sanjay David. Sanjay is a business strategist with over 33 years of experience developing markets for engineering plastics in India. He has a very strong network in the manufacturing ecosystem and has led multiple industry teams to develop markets and value chains. So Sanjay is playing a very, very passionate role in creating sustainable solutions for the plastics industry and leads the sustainability initiatives for Covestro India. So Sanjay, a very, very warm welcome to this dialogue. And we will do a fantastic debate on how do we really solve this problem. It has long been a very challenging space. I'd also like to welcome Reva. Dr. Reva Prakash is the Environmental Policy and Resource Efficiency Advisor with the EU India Resource Efficiency and Circular Economy Initiative as GIZ. Happened to work with Reva for almost a decade now, maybe even more than that. She has worked extensively to promote the agenda of circular economy in India via various initiatives, whether it is EU India spaces or even in her personal capacity, in the way I know her. She has also played an active role in the resource efficiency strategy of NITI Aayog and EU delegation to India. She is currently working on understanding circular pathways and value chains needed for electronics, plastics, and the textile sector. So a very, very warm welcome, Reva, to this session. And we also have Dr. Vijay. He will be joining us whenever he joins. I will do a short and brief introduction. And apart from that, I also see very prominent, people, including Thomas, in the, as a part of the group today. I also see Preeti. So, I believe it will be a very, 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 very good dialogue as we do it today. The topic that we want to debate is essentially how do we bring circularity to the engineering plastics. These are highly engineered materials, have significantly higher embedded energy which has gone into creation. But today, most of the engineering plastic is going and getting downgraded. And when I say downgraded, it goes for inferior uses like conversion to a park bench, to a bucket, a mug, all those sort of uses, which are better than, not doing anything, but still so much more can be done in terms of how do we bring circularity to that. So that's the topic for the day. To introduce this webinar series, this is the 4th season of our webinar series. The session, this series is called Decoding Circularity. And this is the first episode. We will be having 8 episodes in this series. In this 4th session, so if I were to go on the previous 3 sessions, we have already released 24 webinars. This is the 25th one. And this is sponsored because of certain brands, or we are able to do these webinars because certain brands are enabling this sort of dialogue. So I'd like to thank Apple, Dell, Canon, and Cisco for their support in organizing this series. So let's start the conversation with that. And I would, let's say, bring in Reva to start the conversation. Reva, why don't you introduce the topic, and both me and Sanjay can then build upon. This is a very, very interesting dialogue which is now getting unfolded. So I invite you to just start.
Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you so much, Pranshu, and thank you for organizing this important conversation on bridging circularity on e-waste plastics. Today is World Environment Day, and beating plastic pollution is the theme of the year. It's actually the 3rd time in a decade when we're talking about plastic pollution on World Environment Day. So clearly it's high on the agenda. What is often, however, overlooked in these conversations are the e-waste plastics. because a lot of our conversation around plastics is centered out around plastics packaging, single-use plastics, and the others. But we miss out on talking about a very important sector from where a lot of plastic pollution emanates, and where there is a huge opportunity to create circular value chains for utilization of plastics in electronics in themselves. Electronics, we know that, over the last few years, Global E-Waste Monitor has been releasing the figures on how much the electronic waste has increased, and we continuously hear that in India as well, there is a high generation of electronic waste. Around 70% of global generation comes from India. And currently, what we know from 2022 numbers is that we generate 4.13 million tons of e-waste, and only 14.4% of which was until 2022 formally collected and recycled. And on an average, when you think of these figures, on an average, we know that between 70 to 20% of e-waste is actually plastics. And that's a big percentage in terms of composition in a particular segment. And we know that also in terms of industry, in terms of focus of the Indian economy, we are seeing that the industry is also expected to have around a 16% of annual growth rate, which will also then obviously contribute a lot to consumption and increasing of e-waste as well. And this is only going to grow. We know that India is also gearing up to become a manufacturing hub for at least electronic components manufacturing. So that is also bound to grow. What will also be required will be all this material that will be needed for driving this growth. And at the same time, we have the issue of responsibly collecting and recycling the e-waste. So, and when we start to look at the rules, since 2011, we have had e-waste regulations in place, and producer responsibility has been an important part of it. And we have seen that gradually there has been a journey in which the extended producer responsibility and the way which works in our ecosystem, that has also changed. And the rules have also been driving the development of the recycling industry. And so we know that the categories of e-waste have also started to become, be recognized more and more. For example, there was in 2016, we only recognized 21 categories, or only those fell within the purview of the rules. And now we have around 106 categories. And so that has also changed. Like I said earlier, what remains missing from all of this is that we are still not looking at e-waste plastics in the way we should be looking at. In the current system of the EPR, which is highly focused around digitalization as well, we see that the focus is on generating EPR certificates for largely 4 metal categories. And we don't see anything for plastics. So there is also sort of a missing link there, and there is greater need to work on this. And we know that the brands themselves are now having targets around utilization of more recycled plastic content within their electronics manufacturing. But we still need to do a lot more, think through a lot of these questions and move forward. I will stop here for now, and I will let the other speakers also join in and talk about some of these issues.
No, thank you, Reva. So, and let me, just pick up some of the key critical points that you mentioned. Today, when the term plastics is used, whether in any conference, in any debate, in any dialogue, or when we even use it for when we talk of beat plastic pollution, the only term which comes to mind is single-use plastic, because that is what is littered all around, and that is what we see. So even at my own end, if I'm participating in some dialogue on plastics, my assumption in most cases is that it is about single-use plastics. So we need to, if we start really considering, we are talking of a very large utilization of plastic in almost every product category. Electronics is one of those, but think of automobiles, think of, furnitures for that matter, any single thing. There is a very large quantum of plastics out there, and most of these tend to be engineering plastics. Sanjay, if I think you can, put more light on those things, but and this is not being talked or debated in the way ideally it should. And especially in electronics or in certain applications, there is also use of flame retardants, in these plastics, which creates its own sets of unique challenges. And how do you manage this? Because flame retardants bring a certain amount of hazardous element or toxicity element to these plastics. So should they end up being in the food chain? Should they be allowed to be burnt, if people are burning them to get rid of them? So there are a whole range of constraints, or challenges which exist beyond the single-use plastic. And it is important that we start highlighting these things today. So Sanjay, let me bring you in, so if you wish to build on what, Reva has said without any prompts, please.
Yeah, thanks, Pranshu. And at the outset, thanks for organizing and also having Covestro here in this discussion. I think I will, as Pranshu just mentioned, the whole range of plastics is so broad that, you have to, for a 1 hour or 45 minutes discussion, I think we have to kind of channelize our discussions into one particular stream. And so I will limit my comments to e-waste or electronic waste and not bring in those other aspects of automotive, or because we do work a lot with all these industries, with healthcare industry, with the electronic industry. But for today's discussion, I will be a little more focused on the electrical and electronic space. One thing that Pranshu rightly mentioned was that the use of plastics in electronics is just growing leaps and bounds. Yeah. There are some trend centers for that and some market demands that are driving this. If we were to look at that, what are the demands that are driving? And the more the demand, the more the heterogeneity of the plastic raw material that is being used. Just to give you some examples of what is driving the market and why the plastic content in electronics is becoming so heterogeneous. And ultimately, when it comes to end of life, the challenges that we face. One is, of course, the aesthetics or the look and feel of most of the electronic products. You take almost any electronic product, or I can very safely say around 95% of the electronic products, what you see is the plastic. And you don't see the electronics, the chip, or any of those things. What you see is plastic. So there is so much of importance on the aesthetic part of plastic component in the electronic space. So it comes with different colors, different finishes, and all these kind of heterogeneity that is added into the finish of the plastic product. Second is, all of us want thinner, lighter products, right? We don't want to go in for these bulky things. We always want things to fit in the space. Has become so much of a premium, not only in terms of real estate, but also in our bags and in our pockets. So everybody likes thinner and smaller component parts or products. And when it comes to thinner and smaller, then you need different kinds of plastics. You need high FR like flame retardant properties that would really build the function of that particular product. And when it comes to thinner, you want more rigidity, and then you add glass fiber into it to make it more rigid. So then the heterogeneity starts building. It's just because of the demand from the market and the trends that are being set. And and to add to all this, now most of the manufacturers want low carbon footprint plastics.
Yeah.
They want everything and they want low carbon footprint plastics. So it's kind of a paradox here that you want this, that, everything, and then you want to at least say that you are green. Okay, so I'm being very careful in using that word. So when it comes to all of this, little are people thinking of what is going to happen to all these products at the end of life. When they are designing, when they are making things, when they are planning for their products, especially when it comes to product design, and what are the aesthetics, what are the functions of these products, little are they thinking of what is going to happen at the end of life. And that's where I want to link this up with a topic called design for circularity. Maybe I'm jumping the gun a little bit with a solution, but then, I'll save that for a little later on in the discussion. But these are my initial thoughts on how the plastic parts in a electronic product is influencing the heterogeneity, and that ultimately making the whole circularity becoming more complex. So that's where we as a solutions provider company are trying to work on various aspects on seeing how we can make, first of all, our products more carbon neutral, and also looking at it from the design perspective. Yeah, these are my initial thoughts.
Thank you, Sanjay. Thank you for putting this very, very thorough light on the issue. And, let me talk from a pure Karo Sambhav point of view, for a couple of minutes to also, shed some light on the problem. When I look at collection systems for plastics today, like Reva, you mentioned, plastics is suddenly, collection is suddenly, because EPR credits are not focusing on plastics. So there is suddenly, lack of focus on collection of mouse or let's say a keyboard, which are 80-90% plastics by nature. There is hardly any metal content in them. So we are seeing that as a trend that, they are not being collected in the same pace that it was being collected in the past. Nothing right or wrong about it, but that is what is happening. That's the signal that has been sent that let's focus more on metals today. Now, on top of that, Sanjay, the point that you mentioned about heterogeneity, the moment you start opening these products, what you end up is finding, well, first of all, 3 or 4 kinds of engineering plastics. If I were to just name them, the biggest fraction is ABS, followed by HIPS, polycarbonate. I would say these 3 are the largest ones, and then combinations of these 3. So in some cases polystyrene, but in very small quantums. So these are the 3-4 items that we are finding in most of the plastics. But then the variety is so large because of presence of flame retardants, because of glass fillings, even sometimes to give tensile strength. There are also these very thin wires to give strength to that plastic, which is becoming a huge challenge from a recycling point of view. What do you do with this variety? How do you even segregate it manually, even if you were to do that? Because you can't see the glass fillings inside. You can't see the use of wires, extremely thin hair type wires inside those plastics, especially in products like laptops to give the strength like you mentioned. So from a recycling point, this has become a challenge. And this is also a place where, the joint work that we have now started along between 3 of us is kind of shaping place. How do we solve this problem at a population scale? Because we can't be doing something in a tiny space and saying, okay, we have solved the problem. We need to really have a population scale solution to this. So coming back to you, Reva, this is a problem which has been of intense focus, even for GIZ as an organization, and GIZ is driving it not just in India but also in China. So how do you think, from your point of view, what kind of partnerships, collaborations you think are important to drive this sort of a change? And how is GIZ becoming that organization or a platform to bring things together for this change to take place?
Thanks, Pranshu. I will take out the threads from what Sanjay and you have already mentioned in terms of partnerships. Going back to the very technical issue of the heterogeneity of these plastics, and you also have to give these solutions to the market because they are needed in the market. And at the same time, when you end up with these products and you want to recycle them, you see all of these challenges. So in terms of partnerships, I think the most important partnership is between, of course, producers and recyclers. And to have these important conversations to, say, okay, even if we want to use more and more recycled content, for me to be able to do it, I would maybe need these kind of design products. So maybe your products could be designed for recycling. What Sanjay also earlier, alluded. And for those partnerships, also, only these two actors talking to each other would alone not, be sufficient in many contexts. For example, now you're talking about the market and how the collection itself for goods and products that are there with a higher percentage of plastics has also slowed down. So, of course, they are getting somewhere, but they're not being collected from the point of view of recycling and having that as part of a business model. So where are they? So where will they go? Where will they end up? And how do you put them back into the production cycle? If you have, for example, many of the producers and manufacturers now having targets with saying, okay, we will have 20% of our, products made with recycled plastics by 2030, 2050, whatever those targets are, then how are you going to meet your vision and your target? So to even plug those points is important. And from the point of view of research and development, this is very important. We also want the research and development community, the knowledge community in the mix because there are many kind of plastics, there are many kind of elements in the electronics. For example, many different kind of plastics are not also fully recyclable. Many of these components are not fully recyclable. And they also change. Electronics of today are not the electronics of even 5 years ago or 10 years ago, let alone, we're looking far back into whenever electronics started to, appear on the market. So these will also change, and therefore recycling technologies will also need to change. And to continue to drive that conversation around design, what kind of technologies can recycle certain of these components and what are completely not recyclable? Then what do we do with that? Is there like a big fraction? So what's happening? Is it can you replace it with? Do you have something to an alternative for replacing that? And hopefully a good alternative, not an alternative that also creates all kinds of rebound effects in the system. So it is important to also have that in the ecosystem. And as GIZ, we see our role as bringing all these different parts of the conversations together, all these stakeholders on the same platforms, and have these open conversations and dialogues and say, okay, if we have a vision of moving towards, a circular world, a more sustainable world, because all of these challenges affect us as individuals, as humans. There's no escaping that for sure. So having that is very important, and I think this is where we see an important role that we play as an organization. And you all know about the conversation that we have in our initiative together that we're working on, the circular pathways for high value plastics recycling. So that is one kind of effort, and there are many similar efforts being made all across the world by the organization. with very different players. And many of these solutions we also know from our experience are very context specific. They work in one kind of market. A solution for India will work for India. A solution for example, Europe works in Europe, but definitely there are lots of cross learnings possible there. And that's also something that we support actively to facilitate all these knowledge sharing and cross learnings across the world. Yeah.
Well, thank you, Reva. So, you brought again a whole range of points. And the first thing I think which GIZ has done in a very interesting way is made sure that all people at least acknowledge the problem at hand. Because without acknowledgement, without recognizing that, okay, this is to be solved, and having a common question and the problem statement, understood, in the same way across the table, how do we even search for solutions? So the problem statement right now is, just to take our conversation, we have this whole mix of plastics, of which at least 80% are the three varieties that I talked about: ABS, HIPS, polycarbonate. That is what we see. Largely, it may change in the future, but this is what we are seeing in the electronics of the past. We don't know what's in the electronics of today, so that will appear only 5 years, 10 years down the line. Now, the second thing is, from a recycling point of view, today recyclers are really struggling. Okay, what's the technical specification that is required if this has to go into a future product? What kind of manufacturing lines can actually take this variety of product? So, Sanjay, coming back to you to, just put some light on this question, and this also will touch, I believe, certain aspects of design. How do we prioritize what kind of plastics to focus on? I mean, there is this whole, first of all, individual plastics, but also combinations of this in different products. So if you were to, considering, Covestro is the organization which I believe invented some of these plastics in the first place. If you were to kind of prioritize, okay, let me start, this is my first step, because sometimes we try to overdo, we try to solve the whole problem. But instead of taking that, if we were to take, let's say, baby steps first and then start jumping, how should we approach this solution?
Yeah. Thanks. You very well brought out the next point that was on my mind. All of us know that the problem is really big. But like you said, if we try to go and address everything, I don't think we'll reach anywhere. For me, the easiest and the most simple solution for recycling is mechanical recycling, right? And but there you need to have a lot of structure in your segregation at the first stage itself for your result in mechanical recycling to be something that can be used by the industry, and the output that you would get from that, what you repurpose from the end of life. When I look at least from the engineering polymers perspective, for me, when I look at it, especially when you talk about these three particular streams, which you said form the bulk of the plastic e-waste, there are some streams where there is homogeneity of waste, some very selective streams for all the plastics. I think we should try and address that first, because today we are at a stage where we don't have the value chain itself, or we have the value chain in bits and pieces. It has not come aligned together yet. So we take some of these homogeneous plastics waste, like we've been discussing for the project itself, and then start building the value chain. And then, nothing like getting our hands dirty with all this stuff that is there, right? And so once we start developing the value chain, then everybody gets their hands on, and then we start moving forward. So my take would be to address, to look at some of these homogeneous waste streams that are available in the e-waste that we are generating in India, and then try and find a value chain and see how we can upcycle these particular waste streams. Then when it comes to the really heterogeneous kind of waste, we have solutions like pyrolysis or chemolysis, which we can bank on to later. But I think for the first step, I think we focus ourselves on some homogeneous ways, and then we try and find and build the value chain around it. Yeah, so this is my take on how we address the situation now. But I think there is something else that we have to start doing now, so that we don't have the same problem 7 or 8 years later.
Sure.
That's the topic that I wanted to bring out when I said design for circularity. Unless we start designing today for circularity, we will still be talking about the same problems even 7 years later, or even bigger problems, due to the fact that the need for different kinds of plastics is increasing. So few solutions that we as a company are talking to the industry is can we think of components that are not painted? Let's use maybe our so-called imperfect redeemed or repurposed material as a design. All of us want a low carbon product. Even I'm talking about the customer, the end customer itself. He is motivated to have a low carbon product, but he wants it to look like a normal product. Can we start thinking of using our so-called imperfection itself as a design, and avoid painting on plastics? Because you and I know in this project how much the paint on many of these electronic plastics waste is becoming a big hurdle for us to move forward. And second could be the less use of additives. There's a lot of additives that are used on plastic. Can we think of snap fit designs, or can we think of laser welding techniques where there is no external or another material that is being added to build a function for that particular product? So these are, and to beat it all, and on the top of it is what we are trying to work on and push into the industry, that is having mono material products. And if we can design laptops predominantly with polycarbonate, it becomes so easy and simple at the end of life of that particular product. You can just throw it into a scrap machine and say that this is polycarbonate. So we are working on this. We have developed solutions as a responsible solutions provider, raw material company. We have developed for the electronic industry monomaterial laptops. We have, for the automotive industry, we have developed monomaterial headlamps. For the healthcare industry, we have solutions there as well. So I think we have to do this parallelly. Address the problem that we have in hand, and also ensure that we address the problem that we foresee is going to come in the future. So when we do both this parallelly, I think that will give us a better result.
No, thank you, Sanjay. This was very good. Really, I mean, let me just bring in some of these points again so that we register all of these points well. So I think the approach, like you said, let's start with something which is low hanging, and that is monomer materials which are available. Let me just, to give the audience some examples of these materials and where are they present, let me just speak out. So when we talk of a charger of a phone, for example, in most cases it is pure polycarbonate. There is no other mixing of material in that. When we talk of, let's say, screen of a device, whatever device it is, we see a very clean layer of a different material, PMMA, absolutely clean, homogeneous material. So how do we, if we talk of, let's say, we have been talking about electric meters, again, very large quantums of clean polycarbonate present in them. So if we start taking the first step of at least solve this problem while we are figuring out, the larger complex problem via whether it is pyrolysis or chemolysis, start something which allows circularity to happen, which allows companies who are using these plastics, large brands, to adopt usage of these plastics, let policy wins come in place so that the whole system starts feeling that we are moving. And I would really emphasize this, taking too much head on, sometimes may not work, but showing that, okay, we have now started using 20% recycled content in our electronics from a plastics point of view, can, open the space for working that another 80%, which will allow that sort of finance, that sort of problems to be solved. I'll also like to really emphasize, some of the design thinking principles, because again, this has been emphasized a lot, but when everyone is running for very low cost, cheap material, cheap products, you end up, having products which are just quickly made without any focus on design principles. And we see a market flooded with those sort of products. Now, one of the big challenges that we are also seeing on that variety with this is, how do we as people and individuals, and I'm really inviting, this dialogue, I'm asking all of you as participants, what is our role in solving this problem at an individual level? And there are two trends, today in certain parts of the world, there are consumers, or, let's call people as people, not consumers. There are people who are today asking that I want to have a product with recycled content, which looks like a recycled content. And there are people who say, okay, I don't care for recycled content. I still need that glossy finish. So which means even if someone wants to use recycled content, they have to put, various kind of paints and materials. And there is a huge resistance to even use recycled content, I think. So the point that I'm just trying to, say is that for all of us as people and consumers, we will need to rethink what is our role in this solutioning. And if we are not going to put pressure, if we are not going to ask these questions from brands, maybe this transition will never happen. So let us look at that as a step. So going back to you, Reva, how do you think, from the project that we have now started and, this whole focus on circularity in e-waste plastics, what kind of outcomes are you looking at, let's say, in the project that you have initiated? What is it that will give satisfaction? Okay, we have achieved a certain milestone.
What will be very remarkable, I think, if we manage to do it, is to have a use case, a case established for at least one kind of, product, end of life product, to have that entire value chain and to have that entire process mapped out so that, recycle, we are able to collect, dismantle, recycle, and send it to Sanjay so that he can use it in the products and, take it to the electronics manufacturers. So that would be great. I think that establishing those use cases is important. And if we can also, I think one of the other things that will arise then would be a reliability of the supply, so that is also very important. I know that that will take some time. It needs, establishing many other things in the process, but to already start to think about it as well. How do we also continue to supply to the industry this recycled electronic plastics, so that they can also demand more of it, and generally, and that leads to a higher uptake for recycling of e-waste plastics in the country, and and they don't fall through the cracks like now there might be, so I think that would be a good place to vision to move towards. Yeah.
Yeah, and I so much wish that we are able to arrive at this space. So Mani, let me also bring you in this conversation. Mani, you have been talking to a whole range of brands, and you have been a product designer from NID. What is your take on this? How do you think, this can be solved? Especially, what I hear when I personally talk to brands is they need, forecasted material. They need a clear understanding of how much material, when, where, because manufacturing will rely on very clear specifications. And from heterogeneous waste, how do you arrive at that place? While we'll try all that in the program that we are trying to do, but it's a tough call. So any points of view, anything that you would like to ask, Sanjay and Reva on some of these things?
Yeah, thanks, Pranshu. Thanks for pulling me in. And hi, Reva and Sanjay once again. Now, Sanjay, Pranshu, in fact, you talked about it's nice to remember and realize that somebody remembers my NID background. So, thing is, at the end of the day, I quite agree with a lot of things that Sanjay said in terms of design for circularity. And I've kind of tried to talk about it wherever, especially in the design forums that I get to walk into. But the fact is that, yes, we do a lot of things more from the aesthetic standpoint and less from the functionality standpoint, especially when it comes to the plastic parts. And how much are we as consumers, as users, ready to accept something that is not necessarily as it is today, as we're seeing it today? I think that's a big question. And I really think that as a challenge, it's going to be a challenge as we go forward, because we continue to look at material as something that is abundant, and it keeps coming in from wherever, and we don't really need to think about recycling, etc., etc. That is the way we still are. Our mindset is still based. So it's going to be a huge change that we need to bring to us. Okay, so coming back to Sanjay, in some ways, yes, material supply is going to be a challenge, and as again Pranshu pointed out, when it comes to plant running, and especially when continuous plants are running, and most of the plants, even though it is discrete manufacturing, most of the plants today are manufacturing continuously, 7 days a week, 365 days a year, 3 shifts, and a plant is measured by its efficiency of manufacturing as much as it's designed for in terms of utilization. So obviously, there has to be, while there is a stream of virgin material coming in, there's also an equal stream of the recycled material that needs to come in so that the quantum is taken care of. How do we manage that, and how do we manage the traceability? I think because at the end of the day, that's also a very important thing. So that's a question that we need to think about and talk about.
Yeah, thanks, Mani. I'll just link up a little bit of what Reva mentioned and the topic that you raised right now. It's fortunately for Covestro, it is not something new. May be the use case scenarios for these end of plastics, because as of today, we have developed commercial grades which are used by some of the largest global brands, which have from 20% PCR content to 95% PCR content. So we have demonstrated it, and we have established that we can make a plastic product, a plastic raw material from PCR, which can meet all the functions of the electronic industry, or may it be even from the automotive industry in some extent. So the use of this is already there. And there are some stray examples, even in India, not though from many of the Indian companies, but at least from many of the multinational brands that are operating from India, who are using our PCR grades to manufacture some of their products. Now, how do we bring this, linking it up with what Mani you brought up, is how do we link it up? Why I didn't mention this a little earlier was because these, the end of life and the PCR feedstock that we have, it's just not from the e-waste. It's from some other kind of waste that comes. To be very specific, we get it from the bubble cans, the polycarbonate bubble cans, and also to some extent from the polycarbonate sheets that are used for roofing in a predominant application. So, we have established this value chain, though not in India, but we have already established this value chain. And we have this in our production system already to bring in not only the virgin material out, but also with PCR content. So, but it's only how we can generate, like you brought about that very valid point of traceability, how we can bring in this entire value chain for traceability and for consistency of this PCR feedstock. That is what has to be established. And at least in India, but we have this established. To tell you the truth, all our plants, all our compounding plants within Covestro globally are ISCC certified. So the traceability of what is happening with the product or what is going into the product is not a question at all when we have this kind of a system in place. But it's only developing this value chain in India. So to answer your question and to also bring Reva's point, it's possible, it's been demonstrated, but we have to do that in India.
So Sanjay, continuing on that point, would you also suggest and recommend that in terms of the material marking on the parts, today it is very loose, and today it's not mandated in some ways, aspect. So material marking on the parts should be mandated, should be regulated. I don't know if regulated is a wrong word, but it should be mandated so that it is easier to identify and also to sort or whatever.
Yeah, I think that's it. It all begins there, right? And sorting becomes such a you reduce so much of complexity in that particular step of the value chain and sorting if the markings are right. You and I saw when we have visited your dismantling units, we've seen all kinds of plastics, with some markings with PC, nylon, everything put into one component itself. So I think it can begin there, and I think it will help, definitely help. Yes.
Thanks, Sanjay. So thanks for that. And coming to you, Reva, I think one of the key things that an organization like yours does is in terms of bringing this change that we were talking about, in terms of how do we bring this change, and it is both in the industry as well as in the user mindset. How do you think that it's going to happen? How do you think? What are the steps that you're taking? Would you be able to throw some light on that?
So thanks, Mani, for bringing the change. I think we have also alluded to awareness of the consumers already, that there should be from the end consumer, there be a demand. So awareness and education of different stakeholders is also very important on the topic, on thinking through the questions of circular economy. We have been talking about circular economy. We've been also working with different stakeholders, including government, on seeing how circularity can be brought in different material value chains, including the e-waste plastics now. And what is important is to also bring about more awareness of many of these principles. I mean, we keep going back to the principle of design, of course. Design for recycling. I really like what Sanjay said. We design for circularity today. We don't tackle the question later on, but we start to design circularity today. So even just bringing forward this message of designing for today, and also talking about other kind of models. Recycling is one aspect of circular economy. Repairability, refurbishment, remanufacturing, sharing models, talking about a whole host of these solutions and these models is something very important that I feel needs to get done. Because, mean, there are different ways we can also tackle the issue. Of course, end-of-life recycling is very important, but how do we also end up using the products longer? We know that product obsolescence is a big issue. If you have products designed that will only last a few years, or if they are designed to last longer, then you will also see a slowdown in at least the volumes that are being generated. And we know from the data that comes out every 2 years that the volumes keep on increasing and the capacities don't catch up so fast. So talking to all different stakeholders on all of these questions and doing capacity building is important for us. Consulting different stakeholders, different partners is very important. So these are some of the ways that we try to take the conversation and the agenda forward for circular economy.
Thanks, Reva. In fact, sorry, maybe I might be going a little off the track here, but then in single-use plastics, before the single-use plastics came in a couple of decades back, we were all used to carrying bags, cloth bags and such to the stores. And once the single-use plastics started coming in, all of us abandoned the cloth bags. It was not fashionable to carry the cloth bags to the stores and buy stuff. And now we have come around a full cycle, and now it has become extremely fashionable to carry your own bag, and that too a tattered old bag. And you're saying that, hey, how good I am to do this. So maybe we need to also think about how can we make it fashionable or a pride, to say that, hey, I'm really doing something great. We should start putting it on the ramp somewhere, I guess. Okay, Sanjay, one last question to you. One of the key things that comes up, especially in many of these, when we get into recycling and when we get into recycled material, is in terms of the cost. Everybody believes that if I'm replacing 10% of virgin material with recycled material, then my cost will go down by almost 10%. So I don't want to say what I think about it. I want to hear what you think about it and how that works.
Yeah, you kind of brought in a topic which is very passionately discussed, at least in the commercial world and within not only in India but globally as well. And it's typical. I think when people say that there is so much of recycled content in it, then it has to be that much more cheaper or less costly. But little does the industry realize, or I'm not sure if they realize and they don't want to admit when it comes to this topic of price, that there is a lot of technology, there is a lot of value chain that or exercise that goes into kind of upscaling an end-of-life or upcycling an end-of-life product. It's not very easy. It's not, you and I know, because we're working on this project, how challenging it is and how cost intensive it is. But also like to end with a positive note, saying that, about 7 or 8 months back, when I was talking this, especially to the industry and to many of our customers, there was no motivation even to listen, at least within India. But now there is a lot of a willingness to hear, and of late, a few of the multinational brands that are manufacturing in India, some of their products, they're even talking about paying for green. So I think we are taking baby steps towards this particular acceptance that there is a lot of technically intensive work that goes into upcycling a plastic from end of life. And that is at least being recognized by the industry now, though may not result directly in the kind of value add that we want for our products. But I think it has to work from both ends. Once the acceptance grows of these kind of products, the scale of manufacturing also goes up, and then probably the cost to manufacture also can come down. So it has to have go tandem, hand in hand for us to see that result of the greener or the more carbon neutral material becoming less cost intensive, has to come from both ends, from manufacturers and also from the consumers. So when both happens, I think we will reach some kind of an point where things will be much better.
Thanks, Sanjay. Thanks for
Welcome.
that. I'll just run a quick check with Kirti there if there are any questions on the side. The audience.
No questions as of now, but if there is anybody in the audience who wants to ask a question, you can drop it in the chat box.
Let's see a hand go up.
Yeah.
Please go ahead.
I will
That's Shiv.
just, yeah, you'll be able to unmute yourself now. Please go ahead. Shiv, we're not able to hear you. I think there's an audio challenge.
Shiv, do you want to type in your question? Hi, Preeti. You please go ahead, and meanwhile, Kirti, can you unmute Preeti, please?
Yeah. Hello, everyone. Can you hear?
Yes.
Yeah, Preeti.
Yeah.
So Sanjay and Reva, Preeti is from UNDP.
Yeah.
So please go ahead, Preeti.
Yeah, I mean, it was wonderful hearing all of you speak. Couple of comments and questions I would want to make. I've been working obviously in this sector for a very, very long time, and this is something which has been in discussion for, I think, more than a decade. So, I mean, the fact that they are BFR or they are, kind of mixed plastic, and there have been a lot of conversation in this. Unfortunately, I mean, even today, I don't see, kind of brands being very, very active on that. And in absence of that, will there be any, kind of uptake? I mean, I remember also being part of being part of a study which Reva was also part of, where we were trying to do some bit of eco-design bit for Ministry of IT. And, I remember saying some of these things, which I think Sanjay highlighted today about snap designs and, removing adhesives and, so those bits were, actually recommended in that. But, is there a, kind of, I would say, willingness from the manufacturers and brands to take this? Because there is always a cost involved. So is there, a willingness that you see, and how do you, kind of in absence of that, how do you see this moving, especially since it's a very, very consumer is a cost conscious, kind of consumer in India. And we don't see them, they might be a very, very niche, very, very, very niche, kind of audience, which might be ready to pay a little more, but not really large scale uptake of that. So in absence of that, how do you see this, getting anywhere in future? Thank you.
Sanjay, I guess that's addressed to you, if you want to take it.
Yeah. So I really am not sure how I can respond on the grants part of it, but the intake from the industry, I think even now, most of it, what is being driven now, especially what we see in India today, is we've been discussing this with many of the Indian brands, electronic brands, that about all these topics, but it's still at a very listening stage, not at a very the adaptation levels are very at least I sense that it's quite a little far off. But many of the green initiatives or the goals that the carbon neutral goals that many of these multinationals that they have are being driven down now, even to India, especially where a lot of manufacturing is happening in India. And we're seeing that happen. And there we see a take, not so much from the design perspective yet, but at least from the materials perspective, people have started discussing with us. They are openly asking us how much more expensive is your green material than your virgin material. So the language is changing, at least now. But in terms of adaptation of these designs and how they will push it into the market, still very nascent. We are just bombarding the market with this message. That's what we feel we can do now, and we are doing that very actively.
Reva?
So, thanks, Preeti, for that question. Definitely, there is a need to tackle this question head on. I mean, any eco design also needs to phase out hazardous substances and problematic substances, which can have either negative environmental or health consequences, or also are not conducive for end-of-life recycling, where the workers responsible for dismantling or recycling some of these fractions get exposed. So definitely there is more need. Unlike Sanjay, I don't have any real feedback from the industry, so I will not be able to comment on that. But yeah, thanks.
Okay, so if Preeti, if I can kind of try to respond to it, not wearing the Karo hat, maybe. I kind of have been, as Pranshu pointed out, I've worked as a designer in the industry and then in manufacturing as well as in the supply chain. So having worn those multiple hats, what I do know is that each of those domains in the industry have been brought up with certain mindsets. Now, if you look at the designer as well as the manufacturing side of the domains, and I'm sure you're very well aware of it. I'm not trying to educate anybody out here. I'm just reflecting on the whole thing. Fundamentally, their whole idea is in terms of cost consciousness and in terms of their output capabilities. And when it comes to that, it becomes these are inherent things that happen in terms of whether it is an adhesive, whether it is a single molded part. Many of us would have seen twin tub washing machines with metal bodies and all those things. And today what you see is one plastic body which is doing whatever was there. So there are multiple parts which have actually got integrated into one single plastic part, and that's gone on. So that is the evolution that's been happening in the quest to keep the cost low, in the quest to make the efficiencies of manufacturing happen, as well as take care of the functionality and the cost. So I guess while we're talking about change and changing the mindsets of each of those domains, is that going to be easy? I don't think so, because that is inherent, and that's being drilled down day after day, minute after minute into everybody's minds, and that's how the thinking is. So we'll be actually going against the flow significantly when it comes to that. I have a contrarian thought, honestly. So as I guess we are going to be dealing with material which was made some time back and that is getting made now. And in terms of that, what is it that we need to, what's the kind of design of the process that we need to go through to ensure that we are having the capability to recycle those materials? Now, that's, I guess, all of us have been searching for that process. I've been searching for that methods. Not that we have the answers, but I'm thinking possibly that change that we're talking about there is not just about a change in just the consumer mindset, but we have very, very hardcore stuff that goes into each of those domains in the industry very, very strongly every day. And that continues to happen. May not be the right answer, but then just a thought there. I'm not sure if Shiv is now able to talk. Preeti, I'm not sure if we answered you, but then I don't know if you even expected a clear and an absolute answer. Shiv, please go on. I think we can hear you now.
Shiv has put his message in the Q&A. He asks, what is the present situation with respect to plastic recycling and e-waste in terms of data from EPR portals and the actual scenario?
Okay, let me try and
I can, from what I've seen in terms of data, at least what we have in the public domain from annual reports, and I don't see much data on e-waste plastics. We do see the number of registrations, the number of producers registered, recyclers in the country, in the states that they come from. So we have that data in the annual report. I think those of you who are part of the portal as recyclers or producers or manufacturers, they would be able to also share their inputs from at least their experience from the portal side. But in terms of annual reports, we don't see any plastics e-waste data. I mean, what we know is from the composition point of view. Yeah.
I think Shiv is speaking.
I think there's an issue with the mic, definitely.
So, Shiv, sorry, we are not able to hear you. While this conversation is more focused towards the e-waste plastics coming out of the e-waste, and at this point in time, data for that is very, very minimal, honestly, because at this point in time, from a portal or any situation, it is not being tracked. Portals are tracking metal outputs and not the plastic output. So it's not tracking the plastic outputs that are coming out of e-waste. While we do know that there is to an extent of about 30-40% of content of plastic that's available in e-waste, at this point in time, we don't have a number within the portal, etc. Whereas when it comes to single-use plastics, yes, I guess those data is fully available. I don't have offhand a number which is what is the recycled material last year, but I guess one can go into the portals and we can check that out.
We have a couple of more questions. I wanted to check if the panel wants to take them.
There's Avantika's question which talks about the update on CPCB opening the EPR plastic submission window for FY 23-24. Unfortunately, Avantika, no clue on where they're going to do that. The portal is at least up and running, but it is up and running to an extent. It is not all the functionalities are not up and running, and definitely plastic submission is not yet up and running. Submit is not yet on as of today morning that I know of. Not sure if situation changed through the day. Okay. And we are also actively looking for that to open up. Predictive maintenance of the products could be something that that could help consumers prolong. True. There is enough technology to carry this out. Well, I guess that's what is in. I'm sorry, Mukilan. I guess maybe I'll give a flippant answer to it, but then it's more in terms of what is called as a service. So if your product is not working, then you call the service network and you get it repaired. And trust me, in India, we don't throw any product until we have extracted the last bit of juice in it. Even if there is a piece of plastic that is sticking out there, it's still you make it hang by a thread or something like that, and you keep running it. So I don't think in India we have that kind of a problem. We find answers, we find ways of making sure that it is continuously working. When it comes to predictive maintenance, there's a lot more to it. When you look at companies and manufacturing doing predictive maintenance as part of the TPM activity, there's a lot more that happens. But that is something which can happen in possibly high-end products where the product is able to kind of tell you what it wants and where it is failing. Sorry, is somebody saying something?
Mani, I would, in terms of product longevity, I think there are two key Government of India initiatives that definitely need mentioning here. One is, of course, the refurbishment, that they have included in the e-waste rules now in the amendment, third amendment to the 22 rules that came out in 2024. So now we also have refurbishment recognized as an area. So that is very important. And the other thing that we also have for the consumers and also from the brand owners is the information to repair. So we do have now a right to repair portal in India for electronic goods. I think one just needs to Google right to repair and you will be able to go and see the companies that are there now and the products for which you will have more information. So these two are definitely there. In terms of technology, I think we are also a very repair focused nation. We do have already established markets, very well-known markets where you can take your product and get it repaired. Of course, not all producers and brand owners are happy with the way repairs are done in those markets sometimes, but nonetheless, it does sometimes help with the product longevity and the option to as well repair. I mean, for example, if somebody doesn't want to buy a new phone, then they don't necessarily have to buy one, so they can go and get it repaired. And same is true for most of our appliances. What is definitely needed from the producers is the components for repair. That is something that helps the ecosystem, that more than the technology for repairing or refurbishing, the components themselves are important for the repair and refurbishment market. And what Sanjay talked about, circularity, you need to design for circularity today. So the products need to be designed in a way that they can have these components, and these components will remain available in the market for, at least the product life, so that the product lives can get extended. So, yeah, I just wanted to add that on the repair and longevity question.
Thank you, Reva. Thanks a lot. I think that was very important to bring in the point of the refurbishment as well as the right to repair these days. I think that's something extremely important in this context. I can see Shiv is that question as a follow-up. Is there any innovation using e-waste plastic into any e-waste product? And brand who's taking this up. So Shiv, at the end of the day, I think in the next year onwards, there is a requirement, a regulatory requirement wherein X percentage has to be used on, or what do you call it, recycled plastic has to be used by the brands. So many brands are working on this. The key challenges that have to be overcome are finding the right recycled material, which is the right properties as the virgin material, or in total as a compounded mix. How are they able to give that? And that's where Sanjay was talking about how they do it. And in a minute, I'll let Sanjay add to that point. And most of these brands, and when I can already talk, I don't want to name brands, but I can say that quite a few of the sponsors of this webinar, which is Apple, Canon, and Cisco, and all of them are working on these spaces already. So Sanjay, sorry, if you can talk about the compounding and how your R&D workshop is, it'll be helpful, I guess.
Yeah, so we mainly work with two chemistries, that is polyurethane and polycarbonate chemistry, both of which were invented by our scientists. So it's we know the backbone of these polymers, And when we are able to understand and see a consistent waste stream in terms of the properties of the waste, that is the properties of the post-consumer recyclate that we get, we are able to build up this polymer to perform its function, or the product can perform its function without any compromise. So yeah, so there are technologies that are available with us to repurpose these materials. And as I mentioned a little while earlier, it's just not in paper, but we've already demonstrated it. Many of these grades are commercialized and running across the globe, some of them even in India. So I don't think that is, with these two chemistries, at least Covestro is very confident that we will be able to tackle the recycled contents, that as long as the supply in terms of volumes and the supply in terms of the quality of the recyclate is concerned is consistent, I think we definitely have a solution at our end.
Thank you, Sanjay. I think that will possibly take us to last question or a comment here. I sincerely want to thank both Reva and Sanjay here today for being such wonderful panelists. What we thought would be maybe about 30-35 minute conversation is actually become almost an hour and a half. So thanks for your time. Thanks for all those thoughts. And I'm sure with the kind of participation that we have had from the audience today, I can see that it is kind of hitting the people. People are looking at it and people want to know about what can be done about this and how we can go forward. I also want to take the opportunity to thank our sponsors for the webinars, which is Apple, Dell, Canon, and Cisco. Again, going back to what Shiv asked, all of these companies, I mean, to name a few, but at least they definitely are in conversations to figure out how recycled material can be brought back, how the traceability can be established, and how it can go forward. So thank you very much, everybody. Appreciate your presence and have a good evening. Bye-bye.
Yeah, thanks, Mani.
Thank
Thanks,
you.
Reva,
Thank you.
for
Thanks,
having
Sanjay.
us
Good
over. Yeah,
evening.
bye.
Bye-bye.